The large silver ship descended slowly through Earth's atmosphere. It was much bigger than anything humans had built. People all over the world watched their screens as the alien vessel landed in the open field outside the United Nations headquarters in New York. It had been 3 days since the alien message reached Earth. They called themselves the Galactic Confederation, a union of 27 spacefaring species. They came in peace, they said, to welcome humanity to the wider universe. Staff Sergeant Gregory Parker stood at attention behind the row of world leaders. His face showed nothing, but his eyes took in everything. As a Marine with 15 years of service, he had been selected as part of the security detail for this historic meeting. The aliens had agreed to bring only 5 representatives, and Earth had matched that number with 5 guards. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. A ramp extended to the ground. 5 figures walked down. They did not look alike. The one in front was tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Behind it came a short, round creature covered in what looked like green fur. The other 3 were just as strange. The blue alien stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Zilith of the Keldari. On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I greet the people of Earth." Its voice was soft and musical, translated through a small device on its chest. The Secretary General of the UN stepped forward and welcomed the aliens to Earth. Speeches were made. Promises of friendship and knowledge exchange were given. Parker watched the aliens closely. He noticed how they looked at the humans. Their eyes moved over the crowd with what seemed like mild interest, maybe even a touch of disappointment. Later, at the reception inside the UN building, Parker overheard 2 of the aliens talking. His translator earpiece converted their clicks and whistles into English. "They are smaller than I expected," said the green furry one. "Yes, and so fragile looking," replied a tall alien with 4 arms. "Their planet has high gravity and significant atmospheric pressure. I thought they would be more impressive." The Confederation Science Council has already classified them as a Class 3 non-threatening species. They have achieved space travel within their system and nuclear technology, but they have no natural defenses, no claws, no armor, weak musculature. Still, their art is interesting, and their world has valuable resources. They will make adequate trading partners. Parker kept his face blank as he listened. He had been in enough battles to recognize when someone was being underestimated. The aliens saw humans as weak and harmless. Parker almost smiled at that thought. In the following weeks, Earth's government signed treaties with the Confederation. Humans were granted access to faster-than-light travel technology and invited to send representatives to Confederation worlds. In return, Earth agreed to trade resources and allow Confederation observers to study human culture. 6 months after first contact, the first human crews began training on Confederation vessels. Scientists, diplomats, and a small number of military personnel were selected to represent Earth among the stars. Parker, now promoted to gunnery sergeant, was assigned to the Confederation diplomatic vessel Harmony as a security liaison. The aliens still treated humans with polite indifference. Human crew members were given basic tasks and watched with what Parker recognized as mild amusement. "They have no idea what humans are really capable of," Parker told Captain Lisa Warren during their weekly security briefing. Warren nodded. "Maybe that's for the best, for now. We're still learning about them, about this confederation. There are 27 species working together out there, and most of them have been spacefaring for thousands of years. We're the new kids." "Yes, ma'am," Parker replied. "But these new kids have done things those aliens couldn't imagine." Warren looked out the viewport at the stars. "Let's hope they never have to find out." Neither of them knew that in just 3 years, the Confederation would learn exactly what humanity could do when pushed, and it would begin with a distress call from a distant research station. 3 years after Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, the U.S. Constellation patrolled the outer reaches of Confederation space. It was one of the first ships built with both human and alien technology. Most of its crew were human, with 10 Confederation observers on board to monitor and advise. Captain Lisa Warren sat in her command chair, reviewing reports. She had been one of the first humans trained on Confederation ships. Now she commanded her own vessel, though the aliens still treated it as something of an experiment. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," said Noah Campbell, the communications officer. His fingers moved quickly over his console. "It's from the Confederation science vessel Enlightenment. They're under attack." Warren looked at the main screen. "Put it through." Static filled the speakers, then a panicked voice broke through. "This is Science Officer Jex of the Enlightenment. We are under attack by Navalite raiders. Our shields are failing. We have civilians on board. Please." The transmission cut off. "The Navalites?" Warren asked, turning to Zintor, the Confederation tactical advisor standing nearby. The tall, gray-skinned alien looked troubled. "A non-Confederation species. They raid our outer colonies occasionally. They are dangerous but usually avoid direct confrontation with military vessels. Set course for the Enlightenment's location, maximum speed," Warren ordered. "Combat stations." The Constellation jumped to light speed. Warren called her senior officers to the briefing room. Lieutenant Frank Martinez, the security chief, was the last to arrive. "What do we know about these Navalites?" Warren asked Zintor. "They are aggressive and technologically advanced. Their ships have powerful weapons, but they prefer to attack unarmed vessels." Zintor paused. "The Enlightenment is a science vessel. It has minimal defenses and a crew of 40, plus 15 civilian researchers. The Constellation is smaller than standard Confederation warships," said another alien advisor. "Perhaps we should call for reinforcements before engaging." Warren shook her head. "The Enlightenment doesn't have time. We go in now." The alien advisors exchanged worried glances. They had never seen humans in combat. When the Constellation dropped out of light speed, they saw the Enlightenment drifting, its hull damaged. A larger ship with sharp, angular lines hovered nearby. It was a Navalite raider, almost twice the size of the Constellation. "They're boarding the Enlightenment," said Martinez, looking at the scanner. "Life signs show the crew is still alive, probably being gathered as prisoners. Navalites take captives for slave labor," Zintor explained. Warren's face hardened. "Not today they don't. Lieutenant Martinez, prepare a boarding party. We're going to get those people back." Zintor stepped forward. "Captain, Confederation protocol for this situation is to maintain distance and negotiate for hostage release. And how often does that work?" Warren asked. The alien hesitated. "If sometimes results in acceptable casualties." "Not good enough," Warren said. She turned to Campbell. "Can you access their communications?" Campbell worked his console for a few minutes. "Yes, Captain. I'm in their system. They're planning to attack the colony on Proxima I next. They're using the Enlightenment crew to get access codes." Warren stood up. "We end this now. Martinez, take your team and board that ship. Campbell, work on disrupting their systems. I want them blind and confused." The Confederation advisors watched in stunned silence as the humans prepared for battle. They had never seen this side of humans before. The calm, polite species they had classified as non-threatening was transforming before their eyes. Martinez and his team, 8 Marines in combat armor, gathered in the launch bay. They checked their weapons while Martinez explained the plan. "We go in fast and hard. These Navalites have never fought humans before. They don't know what we can do. Let's show them." The Constellation moved into position, its engines dark. The Navalites, focused on looting the science vessel, didn't notice the human ship until it was too late. The Galactic Confederation High Council chamber was filled with angry voices. Representatives from 27 species sat in a half-circle facing the human delegation. Senior diplomat Kelly Grant stood calmly before them, her hands folded in front of her. "The actions of the U.S. Constellation were reckless and disturbing," said Council Leader Voxlem, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "We have reviewed the footage. Your Marines used tactics that violated standard Confederation engagement protocols. Grant nodded once. The Constellation rescued all 55 crew and researchers from the Enlightenment with 0 casualties on our side. The Navalites suffered minimal losses and will no longer target Confederation science vessels. That is not the point, hissed a reptilian counselor. Your soldiers boarded an enemy vessel with intent to cause harm. They used deception and stealth. They attacked from behind. Cultural attaché Diane Powell stepped forward. Counselors, with respect, the Navalites had taken hostages. They were planning to attack a civilian colony next. The Constellation's actions saved lives. But the methods, said a small blue alien, waving its tentacles. Lieutenant Martinez led his team through maintenance tunnels. They disabled the Navalite communications before attacking. They used smoke devices to create confusion. These are not honorable tactics. Grant and Powell exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand the problem. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding, Grant said carefully. Humans have developed military tactics based on our long history of conflict. We prioritize mission success and protection of civilian lives over traditional engagement. You mean you prioritize victory over honor, said Voxlem. We prioritize saving innocent lives, Grant replied firmly. The council chamber grew quiet. Chief Science Officer Xavier Thompson, who had been analyzing Confederation military records, whispered something to Grant. Grant nodded and addressed the council again. We've noticed something interesting in our research. Most Confederation species evolved with minimal intraspecies conflict. Your wars were rare and ritualized. Is that correct? The council members looked at each other. Voxlem reluctantly nodded. Humans evolved differently, Grant continued. Our history includes thousands of wars. We learn to adapt, to use whatever tactics necessary to protect our people. This is concerning, said the reptilian counselor. Your species seems naturally violent. Powell stepped in quickly, not violent. Protective. Those Marines risked their lives to save others. They used clever tactics to minimize casualties on both sides. The council remained unconvinced. Thompson brought up images on the large screen behind the human delegation. They showed the Marines carefully moving through the Navalite ship, using non-lethal methods where possible, precisely targeting ship systems rather than crew areas. Look at their restraint, Thompson pointed out. They had the capability to cause much more damage, but chose not to. Still, said Voxlem, we must address these irregular methods. The Confederation has protocols for a reason. Structure, order, predictability. These things maintain peace. Sometimes, unpredictability saves lives, Grant said quietly. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. The Constellation's crew would not be punished, but human military personnel would be required to undergo additional training in Confederation protocols. As the human delegation left the chamber, Powell turned to Grant. They don't understand us at all, do they? No, Grant replied. They've never had to fight the way we have. They've never faced extinction or fought against overwhelming odds. They don't understand that sometimes rules have to bend to save lives. Should we be worried? Thompson asked. I'm not sure, Grant said. But I know one thing. The Navalites will think twice before attacking another ship with humans on board. Unknown to the humans, news of the incident was spreading throughout Confederation space. Many alien species were now looking at their human neighbors with new eyes and growing concern. Lieutenant Daniel Morgan stood at attention as Commander Vrek of the Confederation flagship Guardian inspected him. The tall, green-skinned alien walked slowly around Morgan, his face unreadable. You understand this assignment is unusual, Vrek said finally. No human has served on the Guardian before. Yes, sir, Morgan replied. I'm honored to be the first. Morgan was a Force Recon Marine with 10 years of service. After the Navalite incident, the Confederation had reluctantly agreed to include a small number of human military advisors on their ships. Most aliens still viewed humans with suspicion. Your duties will be limited, Vrek continued. You will observe our security procedures and provide input when requested. You will not interfere with standard operations. Understood, sir. Morgan's quarters were small but comfortable. As he unpacked his few belongings, there was a soft knock at his door. He opened it to find a stocky, orange-furred alien standing there. Lieutenant Morgan, I am Security Officer Krilltex. I have been assigned as your liaison. Morgan smiled and extended his hand. After a moment of confusion, Krilltex reached out his three-fingered hand, and they shook awkwardly. Nice to meet you, Krilltex. Call me Daniel. Over the next few weeks, Morgan settled into life aboard the Guardian. Most of the alien crew kept their distance, but Krilltex was different. He seemed genuinely curious about humans. One evening, they sat in the ship's recreation area. Krilltex watched as Morgan played a chess game on his tablet. This is a war game, Krilltex asked. A strategy game, Morgan corrected. Based on ancient warfare, yes. Each piece has different abilities and movements. We have nothing like this, Krilltex said. Our games focus on cooperation, not conflict. Morgan looked up. No competitive games at all. Competition, yes. Conflict, no. Krilltex paused. Your species seems fascinated by war. Morgan considered this. Not fascinated. Prepared. Our history taught us to be ready. Tell me about your military history, Krilltex said. Over the next several days during their free time, Morgan shared stories of human battles and wars. He explained the strategies of Alexander the Great, the rise and fall of empires, the world wars, and the Cold War. Krilltex listened with growing amazement. So much fighting, he said. How did your species survive? By getting better at it, Morgan replied, and by creating rules. Rules for war. Krilltex seemed confused. Like our engagement protocols. Sort of, but different. We call them the laws of armed conflict. Rules about what's acceptable in war and what's not. What would not be acceptable? Morgan took a breath. Well, things like targeting civilians, using certain types of weapons, mistreating prisoners. We call violations war crimes. Krilltex's fur bristled. War crimes? You needed to create laws because your kind committed these acts. Yes, Morgan said simply. Throughout our history. The alien stared at Morgan. You created rules because without them, your species would do these terrible things. Morgan nodded slowly. We learned from our mistakes. The conversation ended awkwardly. The next day, Morgan noticed other aliens watching him in the corridors. They moved away when he approached. Krilltex was nowhere to be seen. Commander Freck summoned Morgan to his office. The commander looked troubled. Lieutenant, there are concerns about your discussions with Officer Krilltex. Sir, this talk of war crimes has disturbed many crew members. The concept that your species needed rules to prevent atrocities is unsettling. Morgan stood straight. Commander, with respect, understanding human history includes understanding our mistakes. Perhaps, Freck said, but I am requesting your conversations on military matters be limited to official briefings only. As Morgan left the commander's office, he realized something important. The Confederation species feared humans not because of what they had done, but because of what they were capable of doing. The emergency alarm sounded throughout Confederation headquarters. Admiral Sandra Hughes rushed into the command center. Screens showed multiple distress signals coming from the outer colonies. Report, she demanded. A young officer looked up from his console. The Navalites have launched a major attack. They've hit 7 border worlds in the last 12 hours. Hughes frowned. Earth had been warned about the Navalites, but the Confederation had assured everyone that their defensive network would prevent large-scale attacks. Casualties, she asked. Unknown. Communications are spotty, but the Confederation fleet is taking heavy losses. The door opened and Ambassador William Crawford entered. His face was grim. I just came from the Confederation Council. They're in panic mode. The Navalites are using new tactics. hit-and-run strikes that target communication erase first. Sounds familiar, Hughes said. Like what our Marines did, but on a larger scale. Crawford nodded. The Navalites learned from our encounter with them. They studied human tactics and adapted them. What is the Confederation doing? What they always do, deploying defensive ships in formation, following standard protocols. And they're being slaughtered. Hughes thought for a moment. We need to offer help. They won't accept it, Crawford said. After the incident with Lieutenant Morgan explaining war crimes, the Council has been pushing to limit human military involvement. Hughes smiled slightly. Let's see if their pride is stronger than their survival instinct. 3 days later, Hughes stood before the Confederation Military Council. The alien commanders looked tired and defeated. The Navalites have taken 4 colony worlds, said Fleet Commander Zex. They've destroyed 26 ships and damaged many more. Our standard tactics are not working. Because they're using human-inspired tactics against you, Hughes said. Hit-and-run attacks, targeted strikes on communications, asymmetric warfare. What do you propose? Asked Zex, his voice tight. Let us help. Deploy the 1st Interstellar Marine Expeditionary Unit. The alien commanders looked at each other nervously. You want us to give humans combat authority? One asked. I want you to let us do what we do best, Hughes replied. After hours of debate, the Council agreed, but with conditions. Human forces would be limited in size and would operate under Confederation oversight. Colonel Ryan Butler, commander of the Expeditionary Unit, listened to these restrictions with a neutral expression. We can work with that, he said when they finished. The human team set up in a small room aboard the Confederation command ship. Dr. Olivia Ward, a civilian intelligence analyst, studied data on Navalite movements. They're getting bolder, she noted. Each attack is larger than the last. Butler nodded. They think they've figured out how to beat the Confederation, but they've never faced humans in a real fight. Ward pointed to a star map. Their supply lines are extended. Here, here, and here. Those are vulnerabilities. Butler called his team together. They were a mix of Marines, Navy personnel, and intelligence specialists. We're going to show the Confederation and the Navalites something they've never seen before, he told them. When Butler presented his battle plan to the Confederation commanders, they were shocked. This violates our standard doctrine, Zex objected. Yes, Butler agreed. That's why it will work. The Navalites are counting on you following your usual patterns. These tactics, another commander said, looking through the plan. They seem dishonorable. They're effective, Butler corrected, and they'll save lives. After much discussion, the Confederation reluctantly approved a modified version of the plan. Butler accepted the changes without argument, knowing that once the operation began, humans would do what humans do best, adapt. As the planning continued, Butler received a message. Lieutenant Morgan was being transferred to his command. A note was attached. He understands the Confederation mindset, and they're already afraid of him. Butler smiled. Sometimes, fear was a useful tool. Lieutenant Commander Joseph Martinez looked at the small team gathered in the briefing room. 8 humans and 2 aliens stood before him. The aliens, Krilltex, and a slender blue-skinned being named Lyra, had volunteered despite warnings from their superiors. Operation Silent Thunder begins in 6 hours, Martinez said. Colonel Butler has convinced the Confederation to let us operate independently. He pointed to a star map showing Navalite supply routes. Our target is here, a fuel depot supplying their main fleet. The Confederation doesn't consider it a valid military target because it's not a warship. We know better. Communications specialist Amy Bennett stepped forward. I've developed programs to disrupt their coordination systems. They use quantum entanglement for instant communication. We can't block it, but we can fill it with false information. Won't they know it's fake? Krill, Tex asked. Not if we do it right, Bennett replied. We'll make it look like conflicting orders from different commanders. Create confusion, Not obvious deception. Martinez nodded. Sergeant Eric Daniels will be our eyes. Daniels was a tall, quiet man who spoke rarely but hit targets with frightening accuracy. He had brought a long black case containing a sniper rifle that could hit targets from 3 kilometers away. The aliens had nothing like it. I don't understand, Lyra said. How can one soldier with one weapon make a difference? You'll see, Martin said simply. The human ship, a small, fast vessel named Shadow, approached the Navalite depot using the cover of a nearby asteroid field. The Confederation observers watched nervously as Martinez explained each step of the mission. We're going dark now, he said. No communications, passive sensors only. But how will you coordinate? Asked the Confederation liaison officer. We planned this in advance, Martinez explained. Everyone knows their job. We don't need constant communication. The Shadow crept closer to the depot. Bennett began transmitting false orders through the Navalite communication network. Soon, Navalite ships were moving in conflicting patterns, responding to phantom threats. They're confused, Bennett reported. Security teams are being diverted from the depot. Martinez gave the signal. A small pod launched from the Shadow, carrying Daniels and his spotter. They positioned themselves on a small asteroid with a clear view of the depot. This is still not a direct attack, Krilltex noted. Are we simply watching them? Martinez smiled. Sometimes winning means not fighting at all. Hours passed. The Confederation observers grew restless. Then Daniel's voice came through the comm. Target acquired. One shot. Just one. Through the view screen, they watched as a tiny flash appeared on the depot's central control tower. Seconds later, alarms began blaring on the Navalite station. What did he hit? Lyra asked, amazed. The main safety control valve, Martinez explained. Their automated systems are now detecting a false pressure buildup in their fuel tanks. Standard procedure is to vent the fuel to prevent an explosion. You're making them waste their own fuel, Krilltex realized. Exactly. No explosion, no deaths. But that depot is now useless to them. The Navalites scrambled to respond, but Bennett's false communications had them chasing ghosts. By the time they realized what had happened, the Shadow was gone. Back at the Confederation command ship, the alien officers watched the recording of the operation in stunned silence. One shot. A commander said, one shot and no casualties. But the depot is neutralized. Colonel Butler nodded. Sometimes the best victory is the one where nobody dies. The success of Operation Silent Thunder changed things. The Confederation began to see the value in human tactics. More joint missions were approved. Lieutenant Morgan rejoined Martinez's team, bringing with him a growing number of curious alien volunteers. They're starting to get it, Morgan told Martinez as they prepared for their next mission. They see now that effective doesn't have to mean brutal. Let's hope they never have to see the other side of human warfare, Martinez replied quietly. Lieutenant Morgan stood before a mixed group of human and alien soldiers. The mission briefing room was crowded as more Confederation officers had requested to join the human-led operations after seeing their success. The Navalites are adapting, Morgan explained, pointing to the tactical display. They've begun hardening their communication systems against our disruption techniques. They're learning. A Keldari officer raised a slender blue hand. What is our response? Morgan took a deep breath. We need to change our approach. Until now, we've been focused on strategic targets, supplies, communications, sensor arrays. But the Navalites are starting to protect those more effectively. So what do we target now? Asked Krilltex, who had become Morgan's unofficial second-in-command among the alien volunteers. Their morale, Morgan said simply. The room went quiet. I don't understand, said a reptilian officer. How do you target something that isn't physical? Morgan looked at Colonel Butler, who nodded slightly. It was time to explain. In human military history, we learned that war isn't just about destroying the enemy's capability to fight. It's also about destroying their will to fight. Morgan brought up images of Earth's past conflicts. During what we call World War II, all sides used psychological warfare. Leaflets dropped behind enemy lines, radio broadcasts, demonstrations of overwhelming force. The goal was to make the enemy soldiers want to surrender rather than continue fighting. "This seems manipulative," said Lyra, the blue-skinned alien who had joined earlier operations. "It is," Morgan agreed, "but it saves lives. A soldier who surrenders goes home after the war. A soldier who fights to the death doesn't." Unknown to the humans, the briefing was being recorded and transmitted throughout Confederation space as part of the new information-sharing protocols. Billions of aliens were listening as Morgan continued. Humans developed the concept of total war, conflict that uses all available resources and targets the enemy's entire society. Not just military targets, but economic, social, and psychological ones too. The aliens looked horrified. One stood up angrily. "You would target civilians." "No," Morgan said firmly. "We learned that lines should never be crossed. That's why we created laws of armed conflict. But we understand how to make an enemy feel surrounded, overwhelmed, and hopeless, without actually harming civilians." The recording spread rapidly through Confederation networks. On thousands of worlds, aliens watched and listened as humans calmly explained warfare concepts their species had never imagined. Diplomatic Officer Patricia Nelson was summoned to address the Confederation Council as alarm spread. "Council members," she began, "I understand you're concerned about the military briefing that was shared widely today." "Concerned," said Council Leader Voxlem. "Your Lieutenant Morgan described tactics that are psychological torture." Nelson stood her ground. What he described were methods to end conflict with minimal loss of life. "By breaking the enemy's spirit," hissed a reptilian counselor. "Yes," Nelson agreed, "because broken spirits heal. Broken bodies often don't." Nelson brought up her own presentation. "Humans have a dual nature. Yes, we can be fierce warriors. Our evolution demanded it. But that same protective instinct makes us value peace and safety." She showed images of Earth, children playing in parks, families at dinner tables, doctors treating patients. "We fight fiercely because we value peace so deeply," she explained. "We understand the cost of war because we've paid it so many times." The council debated for days. Many wanted to limit human involvement in Confederation defense. Others pointed to the success of human tactics against the Navalites. As the debate raged, Earth released its military archives to the Confederation. Records of world wars, Cold War deterrent strategies, and guerrilla conflicts became available for study. Many aliens were disturbed by what they read, but others began to understand the complex evolution of human warfare. Then unexpected news arrived. The Navalites, who had been monitoring Confederation communications, had picked up the briefing too. Their attacks suddenly stopped. 3 days later, they sent a message requesting peace talks. The Confederation Security Council chamber was silent as the vote was tallied. Ambassador William Crawford sat calmly, his face giving away nothing. Beside him, Lieutenant Morgan shifted uncomfortably in his formal uniform. "The vote is complete," announced Council Leader Voxlem. "By 22 votes to 5, the Council has approved the reclassification of humans." Crawford nodded slightly. After the Navalite War ended with a peace treaty favorable to the Confederation, the Council had begun a complete reassessment of humanity's place in galactic society. Humans will now be classified as a Class 1 strategic asset species, Voxlem continued. This designation comes with mandatory representation on all Confederation military and security councils. A murmur ran through the chamber. No species had been elevated so quickly in Confederation history. "Ambassador Crawford," said Voxlem, "do you wish to address the Council?" Crawford stood. "Thank you, Council Leader. Humanity is honored by the Confederation's trust. We pledge to use our unique perspective to help maintain peace throughout our shared galaxy." After the formal session ended, Crawford and Morgan walked through the grand hallway of the Confederation headquarters. Aliens stepped aside as they passed, some nodding respectfully, others watching warily. "They're still afraid of us," Morgan noted quietly. "Yes," Crawford agreed, "but they also respect us now. Fear and respect can be a useful combination. The Navalites certainly think so. Did you see their peace negotiators? They couldn't stop staring at our delegation." Crawford smiled slightly. "They cited unpredictable and irrational human tactics as their reason for seeking peace. I'm not sure whether to be offended or flattered." "Both, probably," Morgan said. They reached a large window overlooking the capital city of the Confederation homeworld. Ships of various designs moved through the sky, including several Earth vessels now bearing the markings of the Joint Confederation human fleet. "What happens now?" Morgan asked. "Now we help them build something better," Crawford replied. "A military doctrine that combines their technology with our strategic thinking. Defense systems that actually defend." An aide approached them. "Ambassador, Lieutenant, your presence is requested at the Military Academy." The Confederation Military Academy was the most prestigious institution in Confederation space. Until recently, no human had been allowed inside. Now, as Crawford and Morgan entered, they were greeted by Fleet Commander Zex. "Ambassador, Lieutenant," Zex said formally. "The Academy Board has made a decision. We would like Lieutenant Morgan to join our faculty as an instructor." Morgan looked surprised. "Sir, you will teach a new required course for all cadets," Zex explained. "Human military history and doctrine. The Council believes all future Confederation officers should understand how humans approach conflict." "I'm honored," Morgan said, "but I'm a Marine, not a professor." "That's precisely why it must be you," Zex said. "You understand both worlds now." 1 week later, Morgan stood before a classroom filled with alien cadets. They watched him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Welcome to Human Military History and Doctrine," Morgan began. "My name is Lieutenant Daniel Morgan. Before we start, I want to make one thing clear. This course is not about teaching you to fight like humans. It's about understanding why we fight the way we do." He brought up an image of Earth on the large screen. "To understand human warfare, you must first understand that we created rules specifically because of what we're capable of doing without them." The cadets looked at each other nervously. "But you must also understand this," Morgan continued, his voice softening. "Humans don't love war. We hate it. We're just very, very good at it because we had to be. And now we'll use that knowledge to help keep peace in the galaxy." Across Confederation space, humans were no longer seen as the weak, innocuous species they had first appeared to be. They were now understood as complex, dangerous, yet valuable allies. A species that knew the horrors of war because they had lived them, and therefore would work harder than any other to maintain peace.